episode 1 of the Sacred Love Project. So, I'm going to tell you guys kind of my story and who I am, why I am, how I came to be, and go from there. So, I grew up in um, a wonderful home with two very loving parents that may at times struggled to love one another, but nonetheless were kind, compassionate, and did nothing but right by my sister and I. I grew up as a hopeless romantic. So I used to watch all of the Disney movies, all of the romantic comedies, was very into the guy overcoming adversity, um, becoming the best of himself, working through challenges, and eventually saving the girl, getting the girl, becoming deserving of the girl, and grew up with a very, very idealized view of romance, and still in some ways have that. I've had to learn how to ground it in realism, but have not lost sight of um, the beauty that is romance. So I was a lot of different things growing up. I was a guy that struggled to even talk to women. Would go up and talk to women and just would ask out a number of women, very shy, very awkward, and got shut down a lot. Um, I at times was very passive, very insecure, and didn't have much of a sense of self worth. But I also had this other side of me that was ambitious and confident and direct and funny, goofy, determined, aggressive, physical. I was a decent athlete, and I was really, really competitive. So, um, oftentimes when I was lacking in talent, I would make up for it in grit and determination. And, had had some decent success um, in some areas. Um, but I grew up um, probably struggling more than most to kind of reconcile my masculine with my feminine. So I grew up in a very, very um, liberal, educated town that um, had more of a disdain for masculinity. And there was I think it was more, it portrayed masculinity as more broadly misogynistic. And so I kind of just, my default was, I need to be more passive. I need to be more feminine. I need to be more, um, I was more of I was probably at times overly respectful, overly courteous, um, would put others up on a pedestal and put myself down. And that was my reality is a lot of, as a lot of my time as a kid and young adult. Um, because I thought it was the right thing to do. But as a result, I suppressed a lot of my more healthy and unhealthy masculine instincts, which was um, my aggressiveness, my ambition, my um, ability to take responsibility, um, uh, confidence. Um, my dad was and is a wonderful man, um, but he at times um, struggled, and it pushed my mom more into her masculine and um, put a level of fear in her that uh, made things a little bit difficult for me. And I think that this is kind of a common theme that a lot of young men have, is that when their mother doesn't feel safe, she will have a hard time raising the boys because she has a an uncomfortable relationship with the masculine within herself based on her perceptions of the world. Um, and these perceptions are oftentimes based in actual events that have taken place in her life. And so I I struggled with finding my masculine when I was younger, and as an adult, I was a bit of a people pleaser. I had a hard time saying no. I didn't have a great sense of autonomy or independence or agency or self worth. And I felt like I had to go out and do something and prove something in order to be enough. So, I was a decent swimmer. I but I was good at some other things. I started playing poker when I was a sophomore in high school. Um, I played a $1 tournament when I was 15 years old, no idea what I was doing. Um, but I learned, and I kept studying, and I kept um, getting better. And then I was just, winning tournaments with some kids in, you know, at one of my friends' houses in high school. And eventually I was winning tournaments online. And my senior year of high school and Christmas break, I made $3,000. And that was a big, big deal to me. Um, and then I kept going. By the time I was 21, I'd made $60,000. The problem is that I had become addicted to it. I had a period where I stopped because it compromised a romantic relationship of mine. I continued with it because I felt like I was finding some value as a man in it. When I was 21, I leveraged that into real estate and became well off by my mid 20s. I had a lot of big wins. I had some losses there too. But there were a couple recurring patterns. The first was that I could never actually win. So when I would have, I had, like a crazy story where I made like, $100,000 in a deal in a day. And when I was, I don't know, 25, I think 25 or something. But I would feel empty afterwards. It was the same thing with poker. So I'd win a tournament. I'd win, $10,000. Like a $50, $100 tournament. I'd feel empty inside after the next day. I had a girlfriend in college, and after I'd won a tournament, like the next day, I was like, I took her shopping, and like I was so attached to it that I didn't want to spend like $75 on clothes for her. I would feel empty. I bought a construction company when I was 26. Um, Dealt with a host of challenges there. Turned it around and ended up liquidating it after 5 years after making it somewhat successful after a rough couple years. And I burned out in 2020. So I was heavily medicated by that point. I was on 300 milligrams of lamotrigine and 40 milligrams of Lexapro. I was coming home and I was drinking most nights out of the week or smoking weed. My diet was everything bad. It was sugar. It was eating out. It was awful. I was chronically sick from probably 2015 to 2023. I was sick 75% of the time. So fever, sore throat, cough. My mom had an immune condition that she passed on to me, and I spent the first 30 years of my life not taking it seriously because everyone around me told me that she was crazy. I have the same condition she does, which is my body does not produce cortisol properly. And it produces adrenaline, which is it makes stress management difficult for me. And my solution was to take terrible care of my body and my mind, and I paid the price. 2020, I burned out. And I turned my life around, or started to. I got sober. I got off of pornography. I completely changed my diet. So I eat beef and potatoes to maximize my vitamin B and zinc intake. I drank the highest quality water known to man, the Kangen alkalized water. I lift every day. I sauna, I cold plunge. I have a sweet on Thanksgiving and Christmas. Other than that, I eat 100% clean. Not, I wouldn't say 100%, but 95%. I mean, I grass-fed, grass-finished steak, organic sweet potatoes, organic butter, and my body is much better. I don't get sick. In a way, I'm kind of alive for the first time. I'm off 99% of my medication as of today, June 13th, 2025. In about 2 months, I will be off of 100% of it. I lost probably 45 pounds. My body fat is at 10%. But I've also spent the last 5 years trying to make sense of the world. I joined a bunch of masterminds and I've just watched people. Just watched them. I have spent thousands and thousands of hours listening to podcasts, listening to YouTubers, reading audiobooks, reading books, books on self improvement, books on Christianity, books on health, books on meaning and purpose. The journey into podcasts has been a very interesting one. I've listened to a lot of people and have tried to take in everything that they've said and understand where they're coming from and process it and try and come to what I think is truth, which is what I think all of us are really, really looking for, but it's a much harder journey than we think it's going to be. And it's why I'm producing this podcast. I had to rewrite everything that I thought about myself and the world, take a step back, because what I was doing, who I was, wasn't working. And I did figure out who I am. I'm not the strongest, I'm not the smartest. My identity is based around keeping my parents together as a small child. It was keeping my mom from leaving me, leaving my parents, or leaving my dad. And so that's why I'm doing this. Because I don't want to see half of divorces or 50% of marriages end in divorce. I don't want to see 70% of divorces initiated by women, 80% of divorces initiated by college-educated women, 90% of women who want to have a child end up not having a child. Or, excuse me, 90% of women who don't end up having a child wanted to have a child at some point. 30% of marriages are sexless. 13% of couples describe being in love after 8 years. I love going to a beautiful wedding where two people are just so right for each other and it's palpable and you just want to be a part of it and sharing their joy. We all love a good love story. So many of us out there are hopeless romantics, but yet people can't seem to find a person that they want to be with. You have less marriages, less children being born, but more children being born out of wedlock. You have a lot of people giving up altogether. The people who do get married, a lot of them end up being stuck. You have a lot of people that are reticent for very, very healthy reasons and probably for some not so healthy reasons that come more as a result of watching the divorces that their parents went through. And so where are we at? We're just at a point where we just go out and we sleep with as many different people as we want to. Right now you're seeing a small number of men sleeping with a very large number of women. You have a large number of men who are giving up entirely. You have a lot of people that want to find a person to be their best friend, but can't really seem to find that person that would fit their criteria. We have been seduced by attraction. So women have found ways to look amazing. Social media just perpetuates this, and they look good. And are visual creatures. Women understand this and they play into it. You're also seeing things go on the opposite end. So you see women that have given up on their physical appearance altogether. You're seeing movements that now kind of embrace this. Men are going out and trying to make a bunch of money and become very successful to get the girl. When in reality, women are a lot more complicated than that, but I'll get to that later. Um, we're at this point in history where we had these exaggerated gender roles. And socialization has played a process that is both beneficial and counterproductive at the same time, and we can't seem to reconcile that for what it is, which is a flawed, imperfect model. And so we're now seeing, let's call it an attempt to rewrite the script. And you're seeing extremes, and you're seeing discord, and you're seeing people pointing fingers, and people are missing the gray, they're missing the nuance. The biggest human desire in 2025 is to feel worthy, is to feel known. It's an interesting time in history. We've been able to climb Maslow's hierarchy. And so we can talk about things like purpose and meaning and self actualization, where we couldn't before because no one had the time to. We weren't at that point. But yet, at a point in history where we've been able to talk about self actualization, people are oftentimes less self actualized than ever. And in a lot of ways, the people that are most interested in it seem to have the least of it. I really, really want to see men and women stay together. I want to see the happy ending. I don't want to see the divorces. I've watched friends go through them. I myself am 37. I've never been engaged. I've never proposed. I have no kids. Am unsure about getting married, to say the least. Um, my favorite romance movie of all time was The Little Mermaid. And I wanted to be the prince that rescued the princess and saved her from the evil sweet sea witch. And I have struggled both with being that prince and finding someone that I would fight off a sea witch for. And that's where we're at. What solves this is man's hero journey. Every woman out there wants to find her prince. It might be really, really deep underneath, but they want to feel beautiful. They want to feel special. They want to feel desired. And deep down underneath, I think every man wants to be a hero. I think we have regressed a lot as people, and that's hard to come to terms with. But it doesn't mean we need to keep going backwards. We can turn the corner, step by step, behavior by behavior. Incremental change can last. Maybe for a man, it's just getting a job, just graduating college, just getting into rehab, just making a friend, maybe building a business, maybe cold approaching a woman for the right reasons. Maybe making a podcast because he's really, really passionate about it. We can all have our own journeys as men. But men love to fight. And we love to fight alongside other men. And we want to get our girl at the end of the day. And the girls want to be gotten. They do. So that's what this podcast hopes to solve. The basic thesis of this podcast is that the world has historically trended too far to the masculine. It has relied too heavily on socialization. And what we are now seeing is a overcorrection to the feminine. And men and women are struggling to figure out who they are and make sense of themselves in this world. Where are we similar? Where are we different? And can we be okay with those things? I think if you look at all of this under a Christian lens, I think that's the solution. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. And I'm going to disagree with a lot of Christians because if you expect me to just come on and look at what modern Christianity is and not give you a lot of frustration and criticism, Christianity is falling apart. And I just need to present the gospel the way that it is, and it will sell itself. I'm not going to sell you religion. I'm not going to sell you legalism. But I'm not going to sell you lawlessness either. I will describe the gospel as it is because it sells itself. The biblical masculine, the biblical man, is a combination of the masculine and feminine with a preference to the masculine, and vice versa for women. Men in the Bible are seen as leaders, determined, ambitious, hardworking, faithful, resourceful, physical, but also with a capacity for emotion, with gentleness, with self control, with reverence, with an understanding of their vulnerabilities and weaknesses and the fact that they're made in the flesh. Women, on the other hand, are demonstrated as nurturing, empathetic, competent, dutiful, astute. In a lot of ways, these two are the same. In other ways, they're different. We live in a world where you have the political left expecting men to be like their sisters. And on the other hand, you have the political right expecting men to be like their fathers. You're seeing a complete rejection of men on the left. And on the right, you're seeing a embrace of the pseudo-masculine. This world needs the healthy masculine more than ever. And if you think that I'm going to sit here and say that I'm some sort of embodiment of that, I would say I'm not there yet. But maybe I can see it for what it is. And that maybe I've put people around me that can see it for what it is. And that maybe we're all working together. And I think we would all agree that we spent a lot of time alone. I think a lot of men are spending a lot of time alone. And we're all going to lose if that happens.